14-1 is kind of a nice exercise because we actually create this page here, and we have paging, so we page through more than one screen. Down here, we'll see how to make those. And also, when you click on last name here, it'll sort by the last name. And when you click on state here, it'll sort by the state as the primary sort, and the secondary sort is the city. And so we'll see how to hook that up. And this is a grid. So we will complete this exercise, and then at the end we should have some time to add one more thing. I'll show you how we can add another column here that's got an edit button. And when we click on the edit button, we're actually able to modify records in this table and perform the update, and it actually goes goes back and updates the table. So first we're going to create a grid view control and the SQL data source. So we've opened up the application, and we see that we've got a default ASP.x page, which looks like this. And then we also have a database here, which we're going to have to connect to and probably have to convert to 4.6. And of course, there's our banner and our style sheet information here. So let's add a grid view control within the div element for the form and change its name to grid customers. Then we're going to create the data source for it, and we're going to set it up so it retrieves these 4 columns out of the customer table, and we're going to sort it by last name. So we want to, I'm going to go over to the source here, and we want to actually put that grid right there. So I'm clicking there to make sure that we've got it, and see that's where it is right there. And so now I'm going to click on Toolbox, and I'm going to find a data grid, which should be under Data, Grid View. This is it right here. And so I'm going to I'm going to drag one right there. And then I'm going to pop open Properties, and I'm going to change the name of it to GRD Customers. And then I'm going to connect up the data source, create a data source. So I think we're going to have, so let's see how that works. Let's open up the server, the Solution Explorer. If I go View, Solution Explorer, there it is. And so this is what we're going to connect up. If I just try to go through the steps, choose a data source, new data source, database, OK, connection string, this connection string, which is in there already, and we try to connect to it, we get this error. And so it's because the database is not compatible. So we can convert. Over on the left here, click Server Explorer. Oops, cancel this out. Click Server Explorer. Click on the database. Click on this Connect to Database button right here, and this comes up. And here we have to actually browse and find the table. This is not the right one. This was from my previous class. So let me go to this class, 3 o'clock class. It is in this folder, in this down here, app data, this one. Open this up, and then click OK. And this is where we get the dialog if we want to convert, we want to upgrade, and we click yes. And when it's done, we see that we have our database with all the tables. Now we can go ahead and try to connect up to that data source again, and we see it's already connected up. And so now we can configure the data source, and let's connect to that same connection string. And we want the customers table right here, and we want the last name, the first name, the state, notice the order I'm clicking this, state, and then the city. And so that way the order in the select here is last name, first name, state, and city. If you didn't click in that order, it's easy to change it later. Next, we want to order by the last name. So I click order by, and I select sort by last name. And then we can click OK. And click next. And we can test the query if we like. And this is what it looks like. So then we can click finish. Okay, what's next? Assign these bootstrap table classes to the Gridview control. So we can go table, table bordered, table striped, and table condensed. So what we do is we go to properties. We've selected the grid view, click properties, and we want to find CSS class. Here it is, right here. And so I want to type table space table hyphen bordered space table hyphen stripe space table hyphen condensed. Enter. All right. Generate an event handler for the pre-render event of the grid view and add a statement to the event handler that will cause T-head and T-foot elements to be included in the table that's rendered for the grid view. Okay, so basically we need to add an event handler, and then we have to specify the event handler when the event handler is invoked. We need this code here, pre-render event handler, and that's on page 493, figure 14.4. So I'm going to add this code right here. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to go to the code behind. So let me just click here and go over to here and double click code behind here. And right here, right below the page load, let me enter protected void GRD customers pre-render object sender event args e. And if GRD customers dot header row is not equal to null, then GRD customers dot header row dot table section equals table row section dot table header. All right. And then we need to go over to properties, click on it, go over to properties, and click on event handlers and find pre-render, and then click over here and see all the event here it is, GRD customers pre-render. All right. So now when the page loads, it'll render this table so it looks nice and it's got a nice header row, basically. All right, let's go back to so we've done step 4, and now let's do step 5. Use the fields dialog box to add an item style element to each bound field that sets the widths of the columns by using the CSS class property to assign these column classes, these bootstrap column classes to the 4 columns. So the first one is going to be 3, next one's going to be 2, the next one's going to be 4. And if you add that up, it's going to be 2. The first 2 are going to be 3, so that equals 6, and then a 2 and a 4, that equals 12. So it should equal 12. So let's add those. So what I'm going to do is go back to the grid and click on the Smart tag here and click on Edit Columns. And here is the Fields dialog box. And so we just need to select the first column, and then on the right here, we scroll all the way down to Item Style, click that little arrow next to Item Style, and then scroll down some more. And where it says CSS class, we type col-xs-3. So it doesn't matter how big the screen is, we're going to have a column there that takes up 3/12 or 1/4 of this width of the screen. And then we're going to go over to first name, and we're going to do the same thing. Item style, col-xs-3. And then we're going to go to state and go down to item style and go down to CSS class and enter col-xs-2. And finally, we're going to go to city, scroll all the way down, click item style, scroll down some more, and type col-xs-4. And now we've set the column widths. Okay. And looks a little different. And next, run the application to see how it looks. Notice that all the customers are displayed on a single page. So let's see what it looks like. And here we go. We see it's sorted by last name, 4 columns, and we can scroll down and see that they're all there, looks like. All right. What's next? Okay, so let's add some paging. Let's open up the let's stop this and click on the Smart tag for the grid view, and we're going to click Enable Paging. Okay. Set the mode property in the pager settings element for the grid view control to next, previous, first, last. Okay, so that's going to put like 4 arrows down at the bottom as opposed to page numbers. And we're going to set some background color also. And we're going to make sure the paging controls are centered horizontally. So we go over to properties, and let's find pager settings. Let's click on properties and go down and find pager settings and click the plus sign and find mode and change it from numeric, which is page numbers, to next, previous, first, last. And then let's go down and find the pager style, and let's enter in right here. Let's type pager style, which is the CSS class. And then let's also set the back color. It says background, but it's the back color to hashtag 8C, 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 which would be some version of gray since all three hex numbers are the same. And we got to do some horizontal right here. Horizontal align, set that to center. All right. And run the application and use the paging controls to display different pages. Okay, so let's run it. And we see this is the first page, so there's no back. This is the second page, and we see that now down here there's first, back one, next, and to the end. So this goes all the way to the end. This goes back to the beginning. And so we see our paging works. Very good. All right. Next, add sorting to the grid view control. Display the smart tag for the grid view control and check the enable sorting option. So I'm going to stop this, click the smart tag, and enable sorting. Remove the sort expressions from the first name and city fields and set the sort expression for the state field so it sorts by city within the state. So that is probably a column specific thing. So let me click here and go edit columns. And let me click on first name. We are sorting by first name. And we see the sort expression, last name. We're sorting by last name. And first name, though, we want to remove the sort expression. So let's remove it. And for the state, we want to make this be state, comma, space, city. And city, we want to just remove the sort expression. Okay. Run the application and click the state heading. The rows should be sorted by city in ascending order within the state in ascending order. Okay, so basically we're going to test our application and let's run it. And here's where I play the sad trombone. We see that there's no column headings for the columns that we can sort. If we they actually are there. There's last name and there's state. So why does it look like that? Well, I'll tell you. Let's fix this before we do anything else. Let's stop this. And it turns out we need to add one thing that the directions don't tell us to add, and that is we need to specify the header style. And we specify the header style right below the column definitions, and we add a header style space CSS class equals BG-Halloween. And that's going to add the BG Halloween class header style. And so now when we run it, we can see all the columns. And when we click on last name, it doesn't do anything because it's already sorted by last name. When we click on state, we see that it sorts by state. And then within the state, it sorts by city. So here's Arizona. That's California. Look at all these Californians. California cities. And then we can click back on last name and we see it sorted by last name. Now what I'd like to show you is how we can use the same grid view, same SQL data source, and add update. So let's see how that works. I'm going to stop this, and then I'm going to go back to the design, and I'm going to click on the smart tag here and edit columns, and I'm going to add a command. I'm going to add an edit, update, cancel button. Click add, and so that ends up right down here. One thing though is when I click OK and I run this, we see that the button is sort of off the grid here. See, it's like over here. Also, we see we can't see the button. Okay, that's because we need to add a class to be able to see the button. So now the reason we can't see the button is because we've already taken up all 12 columns, or sub columns, the grid. This is 3, this is 3, this is 2, and this is 4, and that equals 12. So that doesn't leave anything left here. And so let's make them a little bit smaller. Let's make them take up a little bit less width. And so let's make some adjustments here. Edit the columns, and I'm going to change the last name. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just go into the source and do it. It's a little easier. I'm going to change, this is the last name. I'm going to change the last name to 2. I'm going to lower this by 1. Lower this by 1, lower this by 1. And I'm going to lower this by 1 and make it 3. That'll leave some room here for the button. The other thing I need to do is we need to be able to see the button. So let's add button type equals button. Oops. And that should now allow us to see the button. So let's see what it looks like now. Now we have our buttons here, and we can click on edit. We'll see it turns into that. But when we actually try to do something, it doesn't, we get an error. And the reason is because the update command is not specified. We haven't hooked that up yet. So let's do that. So let's stop this. Let's go back to our smart tag. And if we let's try to configure the data source to give us some updates, to give us an update and delete commands. Let's click on advanced, and we see additional insert, update, and delete statements can be generated to update the data source. Click and the reason is because you must have all primary key fields selected for this option to be enabled. So we need to include the primary key. What's the primary key? Well, I know what the primary key is, but let's say I didn't know what the primary key was. I would need to go over to Server Explorer. I can look in customers. Oh, let me get out of here. I can go into customers, and we see here the primary key is email address. So that's the primary key. Let's go back here, click here, click configure data source, next, and let's include email address, and now we can click advanced, and now we can generate, insert, update, and delete. Let's also select use optimistic concurrency. What does optimistic concurrency mean? Well, what that is when we do an update, we are going to make sure that just before we commit the update, that the record that we're updating is exactly the same as it was when we first grabbed it. Basically, what we're going to do is when we go in there, we grab the record that we're going to update, and we save the field values, and then we go ahead and figure out what we're going to update, and then once the user clicks the update button, and then it sends it back to the server, and it also sends back the old values. And so it's not going to do the update unless the old values are the same. If the old values are not the same, that means something happened in between the time that we fetched the record to update and the time we actually wanted to make the update. What could have happened is somebody else could have come in there and tried to make a change or whatever. And so this protects us from that. So anyway, so I'm going to click that and click OK. And let's see, now when I click Next, it doesn't matter. We can just finish. And so now, sure, whatever this, yes, okay. And so now we've got all these things here. Now, let's just for now leave the email address field there. Let's just leave it there for now. And let's enable editing. And we actually won't be able to delete because of referential integrity. We can't delete a record that is referred to by another record, but let's just see what happens when we try to do it. And so that's there. And so now when we click Run, we see that, now there's a reason why this is over here. I think there's actually buttons over here. And I need to go back and put that button control in there again. Button type in there again. So let me do that. Let me go back into the source. And for some reason, the buttons get put up here. And so right here, I'm going to put button type equals button. So that'll show the buttons. Let's run this again. So now we can, like, let's say this guy, Mike, AKKI, whatever, edit, and let's change him to Michael. Oh, I just hit enter and it accepted it as a submit. Okay, that's great. Well, here it is. It's updated. Let's confirm. Let's go find AKKIRA Akiraju. So let's go and look in the table here, our table of customers. And we can see that Mr. K. Tell you what, I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to find Molanguri, A Molanguri. Well, anyway, this thing still is updated. Let me find M. Here, A, and his name is really, I don't know, Arsenio or something. And so now if I click update, we see I've changed his name to Arsenio. And then if we go back here, we see that refresh. There we go, Arsenio. So that's pretty cool. And of course, we get an error when we try to update or when we try to delete because, let me see, what would be, I'm sure invoices are connected to customers. Yeah, customer email. So if we look at this and we see open table definition, we see that it's a foreign key. Customer email is a foreign key which references customer's email. So we can't delete customer email because because then the reference goes away and it won't let you do it. So if we try to run this, and we try to delete Mr. Akiraju, we get this big error saying FK voices customers conflict. It's exactly the conflict that I was referring to. So I think that's pretty good for today.